Hey guys, welcome back to another C++ and video game tutorial. Now you probably tried to run the previous tutorial after you made the functions and you were dismayed to see that we were actually getting errors and it's not going to run. You may have been able to figure this out on your own, but whenever you come down here and look at the errors, so I'm going to go ahead and run it. Alright, and I come down here and we'll look at the error list here. This first one right here, get num humans, is undefined. And then get num skeletons is undefined. Both of the functions we just wrote are undefined. Now what that means is this main function doesn't know about get num humans or get num skeletons. It doesn't know what this word means. It doesn't know that this is a function. It doesn't know where the definition for this function is. And the reason it doesn't know is because we wrote get num humans and get num skeletons below int main, which is a good thing to do because you want your int main to be at the top of the page where it's easy to find and all your other functions to be below it. But since we made these functions below int main doesn't know they exist yet, because whenever the program or whenever the compiler comes through and compiles the code, it starts at the top and goes down. And once it gets to these functions, everything below it has been read so far and everything after it hasn't. So if get num humans tried to call get num skeletons, it wouldn't work. But if get num skeletons tried to call get num humans, that would work. The solution here isn't to move these on top of int main, which you could do. The good solution is to copy the definitions right here, or the declarations right here, and paste them up here, and then just put a semicolon after them. You don't include the curly braces, and you don't include any of the code. Oops, you don't include any of the code. You just copy the type, the name, and the parentheses, and put a semicolon. This is a forward declaration. What we're doing is we're telling int main and anything below it, we're telling it that these are functions and they exist somewhere. So whenever our compiler comes down here and it reads this line right here that says get num humans, it's going to go, what is get num humans? And it's going to be like, oh, well, I've already read this. I know get num humans is a function. I don't know what it does, but that doesn't matter. I know it exists somewhere. So it stops freaking out. And then whenever it comes down here, it's going to be like, oh, here's the function, here's what it does. And then it'll actually be able to use this code, compile it to binary, and then whenever you run the game, it'll run perfectly. So this is called a forward declaration. We're going to use them for our functions. So let's see if we can actually make a few more functions. This while loop right here could go in a function, but we need to learn about parameters first before we start doing that. So I'm actually going to, for now, just do this last part in a function. So this print out the results. What we're going to do is learn how to use parameters to print out the results of this statement. So I'll go ahead and show you. I'm going to copy paste this stuff. We'll do all of this. And we're going to make a new function here at the bottom. And it's going to be a function called print results. It's going to print the results of the battle. Now we don't actually want it to return a value. We could have it return a value, but that wouldn't make much sense because whenever a function returns a value, it's because it expects you to acquire something from it, to get some information out of it. This print statement doesn't give us any information other than printing to the screen. We don't need it to return a value to the main function because the main function is just going to call it and just be like, hey, put this on the screen, that's all I need you for. And if we don't want the function to return anything, then we just type void. So void means, hey, I don't need a return value, just print this stuff for me, and then we'll be all good. And so we're going to call it void print results, and we'll do parentheses, and then the body, just like before. And then we're going to paste that code I copied up there. The cout, the battle is over, and then print out the results. Now, we're getting that same error, right? Num humans is not defined, num skeletons is not defined. So you might think, well, let's just make a new local variable like this, where we type int num humans. But the problem is, even though it's going to get rid of our error, our code isn't going to work. Because this int num humans right here is different. Remember, it's different than this int num humans up here, the one that's getting the input from the user. It's got a completely different value. So this right here, when we go to print it or when we go to use it, we're going to get an error because this is uninitialized. We didn't even set it equal to anything. It has nothing in it. It's not the real variable. So the way we get this num humans, right, it's a completely different variable. We want to get this num humans right here. We use something called parameters. So we're going to get rid of this, and instead, in these parentheses right here, here's where we're going to put the variables. We're going to say int num humans and int num skeletons separated by a comma. So you declare both of your variables right here. These are parameters. Now the error is going to go away, and what's going to happen is we're going to call this function and pass it these arguments. We're going to pass it these are called parameters. They're arguments into the function. And we're going to come up here, or sorry, here we go. Here's where we print it. We're going to call print results, and then in parentheses we're going to type num humans, comma, num skeletons. So you can see what's happening here. We're taking num humans and num skeletons, which remember get set to values right here. Get num humans and get num skeletons. We'll make sure these have numbers in them. And then we're going to simulate it and kill all the skeletons or kill all the humans, one of them. And then we're going to take everything that's left, those two variables, and we're going to print them out by passing them into print results. So they're going to basically go from here all the way down to here, and they're going to retain their value, and then we're going to print them out. Okay, so this is called passing in arguments to a function, and then the function will use those arguments to do whatever we want. So this function doesn't return a value, but it's still very useful because it's printing all this stuff for us. So we should also copy this last line down there. So what's great about this function is, what if we, for whatever reason, we need more parameters, right? If we copy that, we also need start humans and start skeletons. So let's go ahead and do that. Int start humans, int start skeletons. And also, you need to know the parameters don't have to be the same name as the variables you pass in. We could change this to start skelly or something like that, start skelly, and that would also work just fine. The names don't have to match. In fact, they never have to match. Right here we're going to say start humans, start skeletons. So we're going to pass these two variables in, and even though this variable has a different name than this variable, what's going to happen is basically all of these variables right here are going to get set equal to all of these variables right here. So it's like we're saying num humans equals num humans, num skeletons equals num skeletons, start humans equals start humans, and start skelly equals start skeletons. These are new variables, but they have the same values, so we can use them for however we want. Now, if we tried to, for instance, get a cin num humans here, cin num humans, for whatever reason, for some reason, say we wanted to get more input from the user, this is going to do a cin into this variable, not the variable up here, this num humans. It's not going to fill our original variable because this variable right here, remember, is a completely different variable. If we want to return a value like this num humans, if we got a cin, if we want to return a value, remember, we do a return statement, num humans or whatever, and then this up here needs to be an integer function. Okay, so as it stands right now, this function isn't supposed to even return anything because it's just printing things out. And there's one more thing we forgot. Always copy it, move up here and do your forward declaration so that int main knows about it. So now when we run our game, we shouldn't get any errors, and if we do, we'll fix it. There we go. Enter the number of humans. Let me zoom in. Enter the number of humans. We're going to type 98,000. Enter the number of skeletons, 500,000. Skeletons always get destroyed. Beginning combat, battle is over. Humans won. There are 50,000 humans left, 47,000 humans, and 500,000 skeletons lost their lives. So as you can see, it functions exactly the same as it did before, exactly the same. However, look at how much smaller our int main function is. We got rid of all these lines of code right down here, and we got a few lines of code out of here. And what's really great is if we wanted to print the results again, say for some reason we wanted to print the results like 7 times or something, we could do that with 7 lines of code. Whereas before we would have had to copy this 7 times. So it really saves you a lot of space in the long run. It makes your code clean, readable, and it's just going to pay off. So make sure you understand this stuff. We're going to be going even more over functions, and we're also going to be learning about classes very soon. Thanks for joining me, guys.